People joining already? All right. Good evening, everybody. Beautiful weather out today, Thursday. Feels like a Friday. I don't know. It feels like a Friday, doesn't it, guys? But that weather makes you have a lot of energy, I think. You know what I mean? Like, just want to get out there and work, and go do some door knocking. It's door knocking season. Go visit your clients. Go make it worth your while that the weather is nice today. Today, we're going to talk about preparing our offers. So we're going back to basics. I'm not really going to stop too much on how to create the kits. So if you guys want me to stop at any point, you don't understand how I got there, just let me know. But I want to go from 2 different ways to create an offer. So that's the first thing we're going to start on. I wanted to not only talk about creating offers. I know I did this training maybe about 6 months ago on how to prepare offers and how to create kits, but I wanted to go over sort of common pitfalls and point out what you should be watching in your offer. And, you know, go over some clauses because I get a lot of questions about our clauses and stuff like that. So I'll just get started here by sharing our screen. All right, get my little mouse here. Okay, so when you come in to the menu, I'm just going to go back to the home page when we log in. We generally come in here and we go to search. But what we're going to do is we're going to go to our web kits and forms right now. Okay, and we're just going to create a basic kit. So the way we do that is we go to our house. So you got to imagine that the house is housing all your documents for each transaction. So you can keep them all separate and you can add forms to that as you're going along. So right now what I've done is I've created templates for the office. So it's super easy. You don't have to remember what forms do I need for this transaction? Do I need a working with a realtor? Do I need, you know, my 320? All of the kit forms are in those kits, but they're only to start the process, right? So you have to remember that as you go along, if your offer gets accepted, you're going to be adding things to your kit, which I can show you quickly how to do as well. But like I say, I wanted to focus more on clauses and pitfalls today. But we're just going to go back to the basics real quick, and we're going to create a kit very quickly. I like to keep on showing you guys that you have access to this. So this is clearly only for our office that I've created. So you go in there and it's really, really simple. So what happens is when you come into the house here, you have the option to go and add. Okay, so you can see these are all the kits that I worked on, right? I'm going to go in and I'm going to add. So today we're talking about offers. We're not going to work on listing paperwork. We're going to work on offer paperwork. And I'm just going to call this 123 Main Street for the purpose of training. And the very next thing you need to do is you can take one step and go to this templates. If you've created your own templates, it'll look a little bit different, but right now this is what the whole office has access to in Remax Ace. Okay, so you can, if you're preparing a commercial lease, a condo for lease listing, condo for sale listing, condo lease offer, condo purchase offer, freehold lease listing, freehold sale listing, freehold lease offer, freehold purchase offer, and a parcel of tied land offer. So I just put in the most basic common things that we do on a regular basis. If you were creating an offer for a commercial property, you're going to see I don't have a commercial offer, purchase offer. Each one you do is going to be so different. I never threw it in there. Okay. If you're doing assignment sales, again, same thing. There's certain things that have to go along with those kits. Just reach out to me, let me know what you're working on, and I'll show you how to create a kit and throw all your own forms in. But right now I've made it kind of a no-brainer, and we've even auto-filled some of the stuff in the templates, right? So we're just going to work on freehold purchase offer because that's what we do all day long, right? For resale. And we're going to go click on freehold purchase offer. And then you go here and you click the create button. And what it's going to do is it's going to bring us to the wizard. Now, the wizard is basically letting you fill out a lot of this information before you get to the offer, because a lot of the information is similar from page to page. So from our offer to our confirmation of cooperation to our buyer representation agreement, we have our buyers' names, you know, we have our sellers' names, we have dates and stuff like that. It's similar, so you don't have to fill it out on each and every form. When you have it in your little house, all that same information will autofill on any fields that are the same within that kit, right? Now, I usually choose not to fill this part out because I'll tell you why. I'm going to show you a simpler way. A lot of this information you don't need for your offer. Okay, so Some of it you do, so most of this front page you do, but you see as I click next through the wizard, you don't need the contract date, the expiry date, the offer date. So if you're unsure and you're not familiar what is required on the forms, it's really best you just click next, next, next until you go done, because then you can just fill out the fields on the form. And the beauty of the new web forms is that when you fill out on one form, it will also fill out on the other forms. The same the wizard would work as if you filled out those fields before. But I found that I had new agents and they're filling out the wizard and they're taking their time to fill out all this information, and you come to your offer and like I say, you don't need the expiry date, you don't need the contract date, you don't need a lot of the information in that wizard. It basically has everything though, right? So we're just going to go real quick within our kit because I want to show you a better way if you're actually making an offer. We'll go to our agreement of purchase and sale, and I'll just show you a little example of how it translates to all the different forms. As soon as web forms catches up with me, please wait. Okay, so now we're in our form and we're just going to say we're putting an offer in today. It's the 12th and the buyer is going to be me. Oops, Christine Boland, right? And the seller is going to be Ron Smith. I'm just making up something here, right? I could type today. The podium is a little high for me here when I train, so it's like sometimes my typing isn't the best. And we are going to put an offer in for the property on 123 Main Street. Okay, and we'll leave it at that for now. I think that's enough, and I'm going to go and show you the offer the other way. I just wanted to do this because I want to show you to do save before you go between your forms, because sometimes if it glitches out on you and you fill out the whole agreement of purchase and sale and you fill out all of the information that you need in it, when you click between the two, if you haven't saved and it glitches, you've lost your information. So, you know, just always remember to save. So you just got to hover over the disk and click save real quick. Okay. Now what you're going to do is you're going to go up to this piece of paper and it's your transaction forms. And what it'll do is it'll toggle back and forth between all the documents you have within your house kit that you've created, right? So you're going to click on the paper and it's going to bring up all the documents in here. So you see, like I was saying, you don't have to think about, oh, did I forget? I feel like I'm forgetting a document. What do I need for this offer? Everything is in there that you need. You're working with a realtor, your buyer representation, your agreement of purchase and sale, your confirmation of cooperation, your FinTrack, and your offer summary document, right? So now let's just click on confirmation of cooperation real quick, just to see what happens. Okay, and of course it's going to glitch out on me there. Let's see here. Or is it just waiting to catch up on me? Let me see here. No? Okay, let's go back here. The wizard decides to make a liar out of me tonight, even though it does it all the other times. Let's just see what it's done here. It has deleted what I put in it. So this is what I mean. Save is your best friend. Okay. Ron Smith. 123 Main Street. Okay. Now we're going to save. Okay. Save. We're going to go back up to our transaction forms. Click on that confirmation of cooperation. And hopefully if it doesn't glitch on me again, no, it's being difficult this evening. Okay. I don't know why it's doing this right now because I clicked save, but see what I mean? It's just temperamental. Like yesterday, Geo Warehouse was down all day almost. You couldn't look up anything. So when people were doing listing agreements and stuff, you didn't have access to the assessment roll numbers and stuff. It's just the glitch of the system. So hopefully it won't do this when we go to show you another way to make a kit, but they're supposed to go from one form to another. So you would see that would autofill the buyer and the seller. You know, I'm just going to go to the house and I'm going to come back out again just to see if it'll fix it real quick, just so I can give you guys an example. Okay. Okay, we'll go back to that agreement of purchase and sale and we'll try it one more time. If not, we're going to go, just trust me, it fills it out. all our heavy fees we pay to the Toronto Real Estate Board, right? It's actually usually more glitchy at certain times of the day, you'll find, because I think they kind of pull when it's most used, and that's when they choose to do maintenance on our system. So I find that every day at a certain time, you know, certain things will be down. So they might just be figuring, oh, nobody's creating an offer right now. All right. Okay. We'll save twice for good luck. Save. And go up to our forms. We'll check that confirmation one more time. And it worked this time. Okay, so it didn't make a liar out of me. So you kind of get the gist now. If you fill out from one form, you click save, and it's a good idea that I mentioned to click save because that was a prime example, how it's not translating from one to the other. A lot of times it just glitches every now and then, but it'll autofill everything out for you on all the other forms, right? So let's just see if we can pick another form real quick, and maybe we'll pick the offer summary document. Okay, and see how it's filled out. 123 Main Street, the 12th of May. It's Christine Boland putting in the offer, and the seller down here is Ron Smith. Okay, so it saves you time. Okay, but like I stated before, you don't need to fill it out on the wizard necessarily beforehand, because especially as a new agent, you don't know what information is needed on the documents. And I find that the wizard has many more fields than are needed to fill out your offer. Okay. So now I'm just going to go back here to basics again, and I'm going to go to look at an actual listing, and we're going to pretend we're putting an offer in on this actual listing. Okay. I wanted you guys to understand how to create the kit, but basically it's easier if you go through your listing because it'll fill out most of the information for you. So we're just going to go to Toronto, and we'll go to say EO4. EO4 is around the office. Okay. And we're in Dorset Park. So we're right in our small pocket neighborhood around our office right now. Okay, we'll see what's for sale. So we'll do 50 Lewiston. Okay, so your client wants to put an offer in on this property. There's a button above every listing that says Web Forms Authentisign. So what you're going to do is you're going to click on that, and it's going to bring you right to Web Forms where we were, but it's going to skip a step. It's going to auto create a kit for you, and it's going to bring up and ask you what template you'd like to use, right? So we'll just give it a minute to bring up that box. Okay, so here we go. I didn't have to write in the address. Okay, it's got the MLS number, freehold property. I didn't fill out any of this in the wizard before, but we still have to choose our template because it doesn't automatically know what you want to do. Do you want to create a listing paperwork for this property? Do you want to create an offer for this property? So again, we're going to go to freehold purchase offer, and we're going to click create. So now what it's done is it's auto-filled everything for you. So remember all these fields were blank? It has filled out everything in all the any information that's off the listing that it can auto-fill these fields out with, it's filled out for you. On every page that we click next on, see, contract date, expiry date, right? Who the listing agent is, who the listing brokerage is, all the forms that are in the kit, okay? And then your fax covers, hardly any of us fax anymore, right? So now when you go in, it has translated a lot of the information in there already. So you can see that as soon as it brings it up, the agreement of purchase and sale will have a lot of the information on it, okay? So it's already filled out the seller's name, the address of the property, the frontage and the depth, the legal description, and all of that stuff, okay? I wanted to mention too, when we created these kits, we auto-filled out the clauses in here, so you don't have to look for your clauses to load, but that doesn't mean that you don't have to do your due diligence. So that's what I wanted to focus on today when you're creating your offers, common pitfalls, and doing your due diligence on the clauses and stuff. Don't count on the fact that they're all already in there. You go, great. Maybe there's not something in there that you require for this property. Like perhaps you come across a property with aluminum wiring. You might need a clause specific saying that this offer is conditional on obtaining insurance for the property. That clause is not a regular clause that we use. We only put standard clauses in here. In addition to that, if you're going firm on an offer, there are conditional clauses in here that you need to strike out at the point of doing Authentisign. Okay. So now you can see everything's automatically filled out, which is great. Now I just want to start going over this offer, okay? Since we have it all open here, and we'll start going over what I want you guys to be mindful of when you're creating your offers. So the first thing I want to take note of is when you go through the wizard like this, it is just loading the information that's on the MLS listing. So you have to be really careful because you're creating the offer. It's the onus is on you to protect your buyer. Okay. So what does that mean? That means that RICO is looking for you to do your due diligence, to do research on this property, to verify that this information is correct. Okay. If you just rely on what's been auto-filled by the MLS listing, you're relying on that listing agent entering correct information. So if RICO comes to you and says, you have wrong information, you can't say, but it was on the listing, right? You have to ensure that you're doing your part to make sure that information is correct. So how do we do this? So we'll just go over this piece by piece a little bit. So for the purpose of today, we'll just put in the 12. Okay, and the buyer is again, Christine. Oops. Okay, so 50 Lewiston Road, fronting on. This is the first thing I want to bring up. A lot of people got confused by the fronting on. So we'll just do a quick tutorial. It's really easy. How do you figure out what something is fronting on? Okay, so I just simply go to Google Maps and I'm going to go here. I have too many things open here on my end on Zoom, so I just have to move it around my screen. Okay, 50 Lewiston Road. Okay. So the rule is, you guys ever known your north, east, south, and west? If you forget, we always grew up. I don't know if you guys have heard, never eat shredded wheat. That's how you remember it, okay? Never eat shredded wheat. North, east, south, and west, going in clockwork order from the top, okay? So north, east, south. This is south, okay? So the house is on the north. It's fronting on the north side. And a lot of people get it confused because they go, no, but the front of the house is facing south. So a good way to remember is it's always the opposite of what the house is facing, okay? So at the front of the house, you're looking out and you're looking south, you're fronting on the north side of the road. Because on Lewiston has a north side and a south side. So this one, the frontage, the one that they say, you know, 40 feet of frontage for this property, that is fronting on the north side of Lewiston Road, okay? So we'll go back to our transaction now, and we're going to just type it on the north side of Lewiston Road, okay? And then you're going to say in the city of, this happens to be in the city of Toronto. Okay. So the next field you're going to bring up is having a frontage of 40 by 125. Great. I see a lot of offers going through. Nobody takes this and pulls down feet or meters, okay? Huge problem if you don't do that. Your buyer can come back on you, and even if they're being silly and say, well, I thought it was 40 meters by 125 meters. We all know that's a whole lot bigger than 40 by 125 feet. It's really important because people are purchasing properties possibly with the intention of dropping it, putting something else on it. You know, they're allowed to build in a certain percentage of their lot. If they're doing the calculations based on this and they miscalculate because you didn't specify whether it's meters or feet, it's your problem because you haven't done the offer, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to the listing here. We see 50 Lewiston. Okay, 40 by 125. Great. It says it in the listing. No, right? We're going to do our due diligence and we're going to go check. There are two places we can check. So I'm used to checking on MPAC because the other resource never used to have the measurements and all of this stuff on it. So this is a resource that you're going to pull when you want to see what the city assessed value is, what the frontage and the depth is, what the legal description is. This is our MPAC. This is what the city taxes us on. This information on here, if you can prove that you went and you checked it and yours matches, great. Checking Geo Warehouse isn't wrong, but very often I find that sometimes Geo Warehouse will say 39.99 and MPAC says 40. I just, as a rule of thumb, because I kick it old school, always rely on MPAC a little bit more. But as long as you can prove that you've checked one or the other, you're fine. So this says 40 by 125 feet, right? Because then it does the whole site area. Just in case you want to double, triple check, you can click on Geo Warehouse. Now I consider Geo Warehouse more of a place where I'm going to check the title, which is actually a field I just skipped over. So we'll go back to that in a second. You see, this is a prime example. I'm glad I picked this up. 39.99 and 125 depth. Okay, so what do? Maybe the listing agent could have put 39.99. He chose to put 40. He or she probably checked them both, put the bigger one. Or he's like me, where he relies on MPAC more. Neither one would necessarily be wrong as long as you can prove that you checked one of these resources. But say the person had put 41 or 42, or say they had put 40 feet. The agent had put 40 feet, and both Geo Warehouse and MPAC said 39.99. I would not put the offer through saying 40. I'd put the offer through saying 39.99. I know it's a really negligible difference, but it's important that you are able to prove, God forbid, if anything happens with your offer in the future going forward for RICO or anything, that you come back and you say, hey, no, I checked Geo and I checked MPAC and they both said 39.99. So I didn't put the 40 that was on the listing agreement. Okay. The other thing I want you to bring your attention to, so I'm going to go back to the offer here, is just going back a little bit. Nada Boromexkovska, right? So that's who's on title. This is such a great example I picked today just by accident. So Nada is on title here, but there's also a Kiri on title. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to call the listing agent while preparing my offer right now. And I'm going to say, hey, how come your listing only says that Nada is selling the property? When I check the title, there are two people on title. In order to sell the property, the lawyer will not close unless they have both people's signatures. Now, imagine you sold this property to Ron Smith today, and I got all the way to the lawyer, and the lawyer goes and checks title. And he reaches out to Kiri and he realizes Nada and Kiri have had this horrible divorce and she's trying to sell the property without him. Kiri is now refusing to sell the property. So what's going to happen is this deal is going to fall through because they don't have Kiri's signature. And your buyer is going to be angry with you and come back and say, well, I've already sold my property. Now I have no place to go. My purchase has fallen through, right? Who's liable? You are at the end of the day. So this is huge. I'm really glad that I picked this example because sometimes I just talk about it. It's not actually black and white on the screen, but this is a good one today. So I would call the listing agent. They might say something like, oh no, Kiri passed away, for instance, God forbid. Okay. So what you need to send me then is that you have trustee documents. Does your client have trustee documents? Why isn't it saying trustee for Kiri or something like that? Or maybe Kiri went to a nursing home. Well, okay, that's fine if they're unable to sign on behalf of their own self. Nada needs to have power of attorney documents, something. But as far as I'm concerned, two people on title, two signatures are needed. And if they say, oh, no, yeah, you're right. No, Kiri's going to sign tonight. Great. Okay. You need to add that to your listing agreement. So I'm just going to copy this name here real quick. I'm going to, not your listing agreement, sorry, your offer. I'm going to copy this real quick. I'm going to come back here. I'm going to add his name, Kiri, right? I'm going to put a little and here. Okay. So now you've already checked your due diligence on that. Okay. Huge pitfalls. Okay. There's simple things that take 2 seconds to do that can save you like so much aggravation going forward if anything happens with your deal. Now I know that this is feet, so you're going to go feet. And like I say, so many people I know, I see offers when I'm checking them all the time, really super common pitfalls. Okay. The next part you need to pay attention to is legally described as. So again, there's two places you can check, neither are wrong. I generally go to MPAC and I'm just going to see this legal description. Does it match this legal description here on my offer? See, it's a lot shorter. Okay. So a lot of these listing agents, they just pick the quick legal description. You need to put the full legal description on your offer. This is a purchase of something, you know, nothing's going under $1 million these days. $1 million purchase. You need to be very specific what lot of land is being sold by the legal description. Okay. So you're not taking the short description, you're taking the long description. So that's another correction I've done for this from the listing, from the actual listing, right? Be really mindful that just because they're the listing agent, it doesn't mean that they've done their due diligence. So if anything happens with this deal, let the onus be on them. Because if you can prove that you've done your due diligence and you've gone through and you made sure all your information is accurate and you've done the best you can for your buyer, the onus will fall to the listing agent if anything is incorrect or misleading. Okay, so purchase price, we're just going to say we're buying this for 1.2 million. That's pretty standard, whatever the price is, your client's purchasing it. The buyer submits herewith upon acceptance or as otherwise described in this agreement. So herewith is you're giving the deposit with the agreement, which we're seeing a lot more of right now because of the bidding wars. It's been crazy. All our clients have been running and printing their checks ahead of time before even knowing their offers are accepted. So we can take that picture and show them that we're serious. We've already printed the deposit check. It's a good tactic to help you win your bidding war, right? Upon acceptance means that once the offer is accepted between the two parties, that you'll bring the check probably the next day, and or as otherwise described in this agreement. So this isn't often used. I find I use it more in commercial deals, but it might say as otherwise described, and then in your schedule, you might put something like deposit will be brought to the office once insurance is obtained for the property, or once an electrician, with something along those lines. We usually find you make those more conditions in your agreement. Usually they want to see some sort of deposit. So we'll just say upon acceptance, okay? And then we'll just say the deposit's 50,000. 50,000 is a good deposit for 1.2, right? By negotiable check payable to. So who does the check go to? How do you check that? You go back to the listing and you go back down here and you say, okay, it's Home Life Bayview, great. Okay, copy and paste that into your agreement. Okay, I'm just gonna do a quick save here before I lose everything. And then we come down, we say Schedule A. A lot of agents are missing Schedule B, right? Almost every office has a Schedule B. So let's go see if this listing makes me a liar or not. Oh, there are lots of schedules. You have to check and see what's in here to see if there's any disclosures or anything for your clients. So we have a Schedule X, which is an as is, where is clause. So I almost might imagine, unfortunately, that one of these people on title have passed, because usually when you see as is, where is, you're dealing with an estate sale of some sort where they're not guaranteeing anything. It's an elderly person. One has survived the other. They're not guaranteeing anything's working and they're not coming back and fixing anything, right? So there's a Schedule X. And then we're going to see here, there's a Schedule. Okay, no, this is just trust account information for the deposit. So we don't need to deal with that right now. Offer summary document. I don't usually take them off the listing because I can autofill them out in my kit. It's already in my kit now, autofilling as I go along with my agreement. Let's see what the schedule is. Lots and lots of schedules on this one. Registered disclosure of interest in the property. So here you go. Tony Karlovsky is a salesperson, Home Life, 50 Lewiston. He's a registered real estate agent and he's related to the buyer. Okay, so related to the buyer. Oh, this is an incorrect disclosure. So there again, you see another mistake this listing agent has made. This is such a good example I accidentally picked today. I would tell him, I don't understand your disclosure. It's a listing. How can you be related to the buyer? The buyer is my client. If he's related to you, why is he not using you? This is supposed to say, and he's related to the seller. Okay. And it's supposed to be signed off by their broker of record, which it isn't yet. Okay. So which is probably why that mistake hasn't been caught. Usually when you if you load a disclosure on your listing, you have to have it signed by Selvin, which is our broker of record. Okay. So there's a disclosure, a Schedule X, and let's see what this last one is. It's probably a Schedule B. Okay, so Schedule B. So what are Schedule Bs? Just real quick, okay? I get asked this a lot, okay? Schedule A's, you can kind of look at it as it's coming from the cooperating agent. Any clauses in the Schedule A are there to protect your client. So you're going to insert things like conditional on financing, conditional on inspection, give me the survey, leave it in a broom swept condition. Schedule B is going to come from their offices. It's going to protect their office. So it will say stuff like, there's no interest on your deposit that we're holding. We don't guarantee the measurements, do your own diligence. We're not providing professional advice. Go to your lawyer if you want to, just different stuff like that. They're allowed to advertise clauses that protect the listing agent, you can say per se. Read them, because you have to understand that this Schedule B is not protecting your client. So don't just attach it to your agreement and have your client blindly sign it. They're trusting you because you're putting it in with your whole agreement that you've prepared for them. They don't understand that we haven't prepared the Schedule B. So if there's something wonky in there, you can't turn around and say, oh, I didn't know what they put in their Schedule B. Your client is hiring you because you're the professional. You have to read through the Schedule B. So we're going to pause for a minute. We'll just go over the Schedule B really quickly and briefly. We won't read it all, but we'll just get the highlights here. The parties acknowledge that they're aware that the deposit holder, the brokerage, will continue in interest bearing. Okay, fine. So this is the interest bearing account. Now, you're not going to skim it like this. You're going to read it thoroughly when you're preparing the offer. I just don't want to kill our training time. Basically, the gist of these clauses is that they're going to hold your client's deposit. A lot of them will say, we can give you interest if your client wants. So if it's a very large commercial transaction and they're given a $300,000 deposit and it's being held 8 months for closing, your client might want interest on it. But usually they make it so if it's a smaller deposit, like 50,000, it's only being held for a month or two to closing, they whittle it away so the interest gets kind of eaten. So a lot of them will say something like there's a prime minus 1.5 is the percent you're getting on it, and you're going to have an administrative fee here where it says administrative fee of $95. So you got to imagine on a $50,000 deposit being held for a month with a low interest rate and $95 administration fee, you're probably not going to make a lot of money on that to go through that whole process, because your client would usually have to submit their SIN number and their information in order to get that, and it counts towards the income they make, right? So anyways, so that's quickly that clause. That's a regular clause. In the event interest earned does not exceed $95. Okay, so they've put this in here. A lot of offices don't have this clause. If it does not exceed $95, they won't let you be allowed to get the interest, right? Fine. The parties to this agreement acknowledge that the brokerage and the representative have recommended that any legal tax, so this goes to that professional advice, again, another standard clause, saying that we haven't given you professional advice, legal, tax, accounting. If you need that when you're purchasing this property, go find out yourself before you give us this offer. The seller and the buyer agree and or acknowledge that all measurements of information. So this is saying that measurements that they put in their room sizes and stuff like that may not be accurate. You know, you should be checking it if you want, and you're not relying solely on the MLS listing. The seller and the buyer hereby allow the listing brokerage to market the subject property. So again, standard clause. I sold it. I'm allowed to say, hey, I sold the property. Even though your client is the buyer, I can still advertise it, right? The parties herein agree that the buyer is required to wire transfer. So this is stating that their office is not accepting, paper drafts coming into their office. This came about a lot with COVID. The electronic transfers, they're so much easier anyways. They do charge a little bit more, but they're not accepting them at their office. And the buyer seller acknowledged that having been advised that effective April 21st, 2017, the province of Ontario has implemented a non-resident speculation tax. So this is, for that whole non-resident tax that they've put on everything, right? Another one I see very often is saying that if the assessed value goes up and the taxes go up all of a sudden. So I bought this property in February. I flipped it. And now you're purchasing a brand new property, but the city hasn't had time to catch up with the impact assessment of it. So a lot of times I see, especially for flip properties, Schedule B will say that they're not responsible for the assessed value, because what was happening is these buyers were turning around and the taxes are $2,800. Well, the city comes around and goes, wow, you dropped the house, you put up this stunning renovation. Now we're charging you $3,600. That's almost like $1,000 worth of difference. And the buyers are coming back and complaining because the MLS listing had stayed at 28. So you'll find in a lot of flip properties, which is common right now, which is why I want to mention it. A lot of their Schedule Bs will say that they're not responsible for the assessed value going forward, right? So now I've read the Schedule B. I feel comfortable including this for my client. There's nothing crazy in here that I don't think they shouldn't sign. It's all standard clauses. That's great. So I've done my due diligence on that. So I'm just going to go back to the offer here now, and I'm going to say Schedule B and Schedule X. Okay. The X was that as is schedule they had in there, which I could go over. I should read that as well. I just don't want to waste our time on trading right now because it's not a common one you see. Okay. So again, the irrevocable is by the buyer, okay? I've been asked this, and I got into the situation myself today. I showed my client a bunch of properties. 4 of them had bidding wars tonight. And he says to me, can I put it in an offer on more than one? I'm like, no, because they're both want submission at 7 o'clock, for instance, and they want you to be irrevocable until 11:59. And say you submit them both and they both get accepted. Guess what? You just bought 2 houses, right? So you have to make an irrevocable and you have to strategize it. So if there's a bid date today and a bid date tomorrow and your client's interested in them, you want to make sure that this one expires today at 11:59, because as of 11:59, your offer is no longer valid and your client is free of any part of this agreement to go on and bid on another property, right? And then the completion date. Again, I find sometimes you guys got to go in and you got to check your calendar. You got to make sure that it's a working day, Monday to Friday, and it's not a holiday. Why? Because we need a lawyer to close this transaction. So the lawyer does not work on Saturday and Sunday, and he certainly does not work on a holiday Monday. So you have to make sure it's a working day. Okay. I find, just as a rule of thumb too, Fridays I hardly like to close on. If that closing gets delayed, your client is out property 14th, 15th, because lawyer is not back till 16th to close that delay. And if you can avoid the end of the month, why? Because lawyers are slammed with closings at the end of the month, right? But it doesn't always happen. There's lots of closings happening on Fridays and the end of the month, but that's just generally what I see if you can avoid. So here we're going to go into fax, email, pretty standard. Put your email and fax here for the office. The fax and the email address can be found on the listing here. So you go down and you just click here, the fax number is there. The email, if you click on the agent's name, will be there under the agent's name, right? In his email section, copy and paste, put it on your agreement. Okay. Chattels included. So I've seen a couple problems, even like just arising in the last year being here. Chattels and fixtures, you have to be really careful with them. What's included in the sale? Okay, so let's go and see what he's including in his sale. So he's saying here, all electrical light fixtures, window coverings, fridge, stove, fridge, another fridge, I guess, washer, dryer, deep freeze, all in as is condition, hot water tank, rental, maintenance plans. Okay. So first of all, I want to find out, I find this just a quick heads up. You don't usually see maintenance plans in here. I want to ask him, is it something that my buyer has to assume? Not everybody has a maintenance plan on their furnace. Do I have to assume it? No, I don't necessarily have to assume the Enercare. Great. Okay. I want to go in here and just look at the pictures real quick with you guys, and I just get a feel for this. So here's just basic white appliances. They're as is. I'm not too worried about it either, but just let's pretend for a minute that this was big renovation. They've got all stainless steel LG appliances. I'm going to make it up. Okay. You guys have to try and be as specific. So a lot of agents will put this in here. Okay. I'm going to copy and paste what they put in here, but you don't have to put exactly what they put. Edit it to protect your client. Right. So I always take this and make it electrical. Whoops. Light fixtures, right? And then all window coverings, okay? And I make it to what I think my client needs for it. So I would put stainless, I'll just move my mouse out of the way for you guys. Stainless steel, LG fridge. And I do the same, stainless steel stove, you know, Frigidaire fridge, you know, red Whirlpool washer and dryer, you know, deep freeze. This one says all in as in condition. Usually if it's a flip, it won't say this, it'll be brand new appliances. So why am I stating this? Sometimes in a flip, and I've seen it happen, where you go in and they put in all this beautiful new high-end appliances and your client's really excited. Wow, look at this big washer and dryer and this ginormous fridge. Great, no problem. And you just put fridge, stove, washer, dryer. That's all the seller's required to provide for your client. So if you come back and they have a basic white fridge, stove, washer, dryer, your client's going to have a hard time coming back. Okay. So there are things to protect your client. Try to put in the make, the model. I know it's always hard to get serial numbers, the model, but if you could at least get the make in there, that it's a stainless steel fridge, not a basic white fridge. And just if you're making a file every time for your client, try to save pictures. So in the listing, those are dodgy old appliances, but if there's pictures of the kitchen there where they have the brand new appliances, I would go and I would just do a quick save in my folder, because going forward on closing day, if any of those things are missing, I can go back and say, nope, I put it was a stainless steel LG fridge and I have a picture of it here from the listing. That's what we viewed. That's what we bought in the list when we walked through the property, right? Fixtures excluded. So they haven't excluded any. Today I went and they had a light fixture over the TV excluded. Okay, so you'd put that in here, because sometimes people, they say, oh, I got that chandelier from my grandmother, or I brought this over from Italy, and even though it's beautiful hanging over the dining room table, your clients move in and now there's, you know, just a basic one from Home Depot there, when there was this beautiful one there when you walk through. So you got to make sure there's no exclusions and write that for your clients. Rental items, you better make sure you always put, if you're unsure, If you can't get a hold of a listing agent and you're unsure, always put it in as a rule of thumb. They should cross it out and fix it if it's incorrect. Why? Because if you miss it and it's a hot water tank and it's a rental and your client's now mad because they didn't factor in that it's $38 for the big tankless they put in the basement, you're going to end up being responsible somewhat for that rental, maybe for the first year or something, just to quiet your client down. So put it in. If it's incorrect, they'll cross it out. 99% of the time, you guys should be calling a listing agent and ensuring whether it's a hot water tank. If you could put up hot water tank $21.19 a month, even better. If they send you the contract and show you and you're confident, but always put it in here. Okay. You definitely want to ask. Now, hot water tank is common. You want to know. So this said maintenance plans. It kind of gives me a little like, why do they put maintenance plans in? Maintenance plans for what? Is the furnace a rental as well? Okay. It's not as common, but it's definitely something that you need to be mindful of, because if the furnace is a rental, that's huge. And you're going to be responsible for that contract if you don't disclose that for your client, because a lot of people don't like that. They don't want to be paying because furnaces and ACs bump up from $20 a month for a hot water tank to maybe $100, $150, depending if they just bought it in the beginning of their contract. So make sure you're finding out, okay, what the information is. Only hot water tank is a rental? Great. HST is always included in, almost always, for resale homes. So that's what we're doing most of the time. And the title search. Okay, so let's just go back here. What did we pick for a closing date? We picked the 10th of May, which is already passed, but it's okay. We'll pick another day and we'll go here down to the 7th of June. Okay, so the 7th of June is our closing date. What is the title search date? The title search date is when the lawyer has to go in and make sure that there's no liens or encumbrances hindering the closing of this property, because no lawyer will close unless there's a clean and clear title. Okay, so what you have to do is you have to give the lawyer enough time to do that, but you also have to have it close enough to your closing date. So it's kind of a tricky situation where you have to have it close enough to your closing date. So by the time, you know, the house posts it's sold, say for instance on House Sigma, and it's public information, maybe they owe the contractor $40,000 and he decides, hey, they turned around and sold that property after I fixed it up for them. Now I put a lien on this property. Okay, so you usually make it 2 weeks before closing. Okay, just as a general rule. So we made our closing date June 7th. I just usually go back 2 weeks. Again, it has to be a working day because the lawyer is the one doing the title search. So it has to be a working day and not a holiday. So let's go back to the 24th of May. And here, 90% of the time, we're doing single family residential. Sometimes we do mixed use or residential commercial, but 99% of the time, if you're unsure, where do you check what the zoning is for the property? Okay, we're going to go back here to property and we're going to go to enhanced and we're going to see that it's RD. So I know that's residential. Okay, and it's a single family home that we're buying. So it's a single family residential is what you're putting in that spot 99% of the time. Okay. We'll just go down here. Is anybody lost up to this point? I've been talking for almost the entire hour because I told you we have a lot of information to get through tonight. And honestly, I could do a whole other training, which I will do soon, because I do like to go over all of these clauses, because I find a lot of us are filling out all of the fillable parts of the agreement of purchase and sale. But a lot of these standard clauses here, you're going to get asked by your clients one of these days, and you better believe you better make sure you know what's in them, like future use and title, closing arrangements, what's all about those titles. Now, we generally cannot change those. I find the only times they're crossed off or changed is when it's a sale, like a foreclosure. The bank lawyers don't like some of the clauses TREB's put in there, but we, for our regular transactions, we're governed by the board. TREB has hired lawyers to create this agreement of purchase and sale for us. We generally aren't crossing out a lot of these clauses ever, right? But I'll go over them another time because I don't want to run out of time here. The last part is the common clauses that we're going here. So like I said, you got to be mindful when you create a template, when you use the kits that I've created for the office, I just dropped in standard clauses here. So if you need something that it's conditional on insurance or conditional on electrician inspection, then you need to go in and put that clause in there. If your client is going in firm, you need to cross off some of these clauses, okay? I see some people delete them, never delete them, okay? And I'll tell you why. I've seen RICO come back and clients say, I didn't know I was putting in a firm offer. How are you going to prove that? So the way you prove that and the way you govern yourself and you protect your client to show that the clause was there is you mindfully make them strike it out and initial it. So never delete your clause. Never go, I want it to be firm. I'm just going to delete this clause here. What you're going to do is you're going to strike it and then have your client initial it when you're pulling up your Authentisign or when you're having them sign pen to paper. But just for a quick overview, I've got about 10 minutes left here. We have that the offers condition, well, you have first of all, the one is the buyer agrees to pay the balance of the purchase price. Your buyer never has to really deal with that, because what happens is the mortgage will electronically transfer it. They'll pay out the mortgage, they'll put the mortgage on the new property, put the titles on. The lawyer's doing all of that. This is conditional for financing. This is conditional for inspection, right? The seller represents and warrants that the chattels and fixtures as included in this agreement, purchase and sale, will be in good working order. So I already know that I should be crossing off this clause. Why? Do you guys remember when we went back to the beginning of this listing? We said here that it said that there is an as-is condition. As-is condition. So I can guarantee you, if we leave this in, our listing agent is not going to be accepting this offer. So we're going to preemptively strike it so our offer gets accepted. But we're not going to delete it, because our clients might go in and say, hey, some of the burners on the stove are not working. And you're going to say, no, remember, we crossed off that clause because I pointed out to you that the chattels and fixtures are in good working order. They're not guaranteeing that. It's as is, right? The seller represents and warrants that during this time the seller is on the property, the use of the property, the buildings and structures therein has not been used for the manufacture of illegal substances. So this used to only say marijuana, but we're just going with illegal substances now, because everybody's allowed to grow a certain amount of plants for cannabis, and you're allowed to smoke in your property now. But this covers basically the umbrella of anything like, I don't know, if they're cooking meth in their basement or something, right? That covers that as well. The buyer shall have the right to revisit the property 2 times. So we get our 2 buyers visits. The seller agrees to provide at the seller's own expense within 3 banking days of this offer an existing survey. So I can almost guarantee you this is an as-is sale. This is the older couple. Let's see, when have they owned it? So since 1978. They probably misplaced their survey. So you have to explain to your clients, if this clause gets crossed off, that there's no survey with the property. What are the consequences of not having a survey with the property? If your client is an investor and he's planning on dropping and building a new property, he's going to need a survey. If the fences are in disrepair, you're going to definitely need to consult with the neighbors. You need a survey of your property. What does it cost for a survey? If you're lucky, the city might have a copy that you can purchase. Sometimes they'll give it to you if you catch a nice person on the phone. If you need to redraw a survey, it can cost you a couple $1,000. Right? So you have to make sure your buyer is mindful of that if you're crossing off that clause, right? The buyer to this agreement acknowledges that the real estate brokerages, sales representatives so named in this agreement have recommended that parties. So this is the same thing that's in the Schedule B. So again, we say the Schedule A is protecting us and our clients. Schedule B is protecting them. This is a clause that we've seen on both now. Remember, I went over it in the Schedule B saying that you have to go and get legal advice or professional advice. I'm not giving you that professional advice. Okay, the seller represents and warrants that to the best of their knowledge and understanding, this property has not been stigmatized by a death. So a lot of people, we're just talking about disclosures. Now I was just going to go over patent and latent defects and disclosures the other day, and this falls under that. So, whether it's stigmatized by death, you see, it doesn't say natural death, it just says death. So I put in an offer the other day, which didn't get accepted. And they called me back and said, hey, 2 of them did die, like first the husband and then the wife. They own the property since 68, but it was natural causes in their home. That didn't bother my client. And they went ahead and put an offer in, right? These ones to follow here in our regular Schedule A are just COVID clauses. So a lot of them touch on, at the time when everything was locked down, we couldn't go anywhere during COVID. If for some reason that affected our closing, like the lawyer just wasn't working or the banks had shut down for a reason that, if it was beyond our control, that neither party would be penalized for not closing on time. If it was something to do COVID related. This is that assessed value I was talking about. So if the property value goes up, an impact raises your taxes, you can't come back. This is another one. They're not making any guarantees or representations for the retrofit status. So if the people have done a renovation and they've now put a basement apartment in, unless they're coming with a certificate saying it's a legal basement apartment, we're not guaranteeing the retrofit status of the basement. And here we're saying we're providing keys, fobs, whatever. Again, you need to curate these a little bit. If you notice that there's a garage door you need to say 2 garage door openers. If you notice that there's a keypad on the front, you need to say code for the key front. If there's auxiliary buildings, you need to say, you know, keys for the auxiliary buildings. If there's those mailboxes that aren't mail at your door, mailbox keys. These are all things that can really add up to expenses. So if you're paying, you know, $100, $200 for all these keys and fobs for each different thing, and you're not including it in your contract for your client, it can add up to quite a bit of money on their closing. So you have to make sure at least 1 entry key. I usually say 2 entry keys to the subject property, and then I try to itemize. It says here in closing any other available keys. Well, they might say, oh, it's not available, but you don't know. It comes as a surprise. So very often when you're doing your agreement of purchase and sale, put in those things like garage fobs, mail keys. And if you say, oh, I don't have both, I only have 1 garage fob and I only have 1 mailbox key, 1 entry key, at least your client is aware of it ahead of time and not getting mad at you on closing when they can't find anything and they have no keys to open anything. Especially if they have no keys, it's costly to get a locksmith to come in there. Seller agrees to move all the garbage and debris from the whole house. So I want a clean house delivered to my client. To repair any damages or visible holes resulting from the removal of equipment. So a lot of times we have these TV mounts coming off the walls, leaving big holes. Oh, I carried the couch out, I dented the wall. So we want to make sure that those things, the couch that's been sitting there for 30 years has scratched the back of it, you couldn't see, right? We want to make sure that they're fixing those little things before they leave, so our client has a clean house. And the seller and purchaser understand and agree that all permanent fixtures which have been attached to this property will be there at the time of completion date. So permanent fixture, anything nailed to the wall, you walk in and there's like a wardrobe or a shelving unit in the basement that's fixed to the house. You're assuming that's going to be there, right? So that's considered a fixture. So they have to leave that unless they itemize, no, we'll be removing the entertainment unit in the basement that's fixed to the wall, right? Also, your client is aware at the end of the day. All right, I've thrown a lot at you guys all at once. How's everybody doing online there? So I could talk solid for a whole other hour. Like I say, I do want to do another session of this to go over all of those clauses that Treb writes in. I want to go and show you how to push it into Authentisign from here. There's a million different ways we can do this topic because I just know that questions I get asked on a regular basis, so I try to cover it. Also remember, guys, like I'm always open to topics, so sometimes people suggest things to me and I go, that's a great topic, I'll totally cover it. Like I know a little while back I had some people in the office who wanted me to go over commercial, so we did that. So I'm always open to suggestions. I just go over what I feel is appropriate for the time of year that we're in, what we need, or if I haven't done a topic in a while like this one I hadn't done, I figured it's time to catch up because we've got a lot of new agents joined us since the last 6 months, right? So it's a good topic to go over. It's a good resource for you guys. Again, I'll post it, so if you totally missed how I did something, how I created one of those kits, you can watch it back on YouTube once I send the link out. And does anybody have any questions? Everybody good online? Everybody good in the office? All right, everybody, you have a lovely weekend. I hope this weather keeps up. I hate it when it's really nice during the week and then the weekend comes and it rains or something. So hopefully the weather's nice for the weekend, and I will see you guys all Tuesday morning. All right. Good night, everyone.